All right, welcome to the Meat Dudes. I'm Evan,
I'm Tyler.
and we are joined here with Daniel of Sustainable Natural Foods, who's a rancher down in Southern Oregon, and he's raising full blood Wagyu cattle. And we're excited to have you, man. How's it going?
What's going on, guys? Really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, we chatted a little bit. As you know, we're trying to talk to as many ranchers and people in the Wagyu industry as possible, man. So we're super happy to have you here. Someone who's actually doing it, hands-on. Let's talk a little bit about your experience and kind of how you got into ranching in Wagyu as well. So why don't you kind of bring us up to speed there?
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so ag's been a part of my life since I was a little kid.
Mhm.
I was actually born and raised Southern California, and horses were the focus.
Oh,
We started getting into cattle for a couple reasons. Everything that we do around the ranch and really within my family is missions based. So we're able to go around the world. We do a lot of stuff with just missions, feeding orphans, taking care of people. And so what we wanted to do was have a place where we could train some people in agriculture, help teach orphans and different groups that we're with, just some basic integrated sustainable agriculture. It's the old adage, teach a man to fish.
yeah.
And so we were doing that, but we wanted to do cattle. And so my dad and I'm first generation rancher. My dad and I, we got 4 cows. We put some full blood Wagyu embryos in them,
Yeah.
and off to the races.
And
And so
your cows were Angus?
we started off with Angus. Yeah, we bought 4 Angus. You know what? Let me check that. We had 2 black Angus, and then we had two reds. So we had a diverse herd. Really, the reason for it was they were good mamas. They were going to make great recip cows, which is a whole bear in and of itself. Getting a mama that'll take an embryo, raise a calf. That's a whole nother segment that we're playing with. But yeah, that's how we started off. Got into it. My dad was really looking at a number of breeds and trying to decide which one was which, and then we have some connection with Japan, and so it's like, all right, let's just run with the Japanese Wagyu, and man, I'm glad we did.
No kidding.
Best decision ever,
Wow.
man. So really,
Yeah.
was that it? Just more of like connection and relationship based? Just like, hey, I'm gonna reach out here and we're gonna go with Wagyu, or did you really understand what it was at the time?
I don't think anybody understood what it was at the time. We were in early.
What year was
We
that?
weren't in quite, well, we weren't in as early as like Dr. Jerry. He launched this thing, and I loved what you guys did with him. Let's see, we started spitballing the idea back in 2009, and then we were running 2011.
Okay.
Rad.
Sweet, dude. Sweet. So 2011, still, I mean, when I think back at 2011 and Wagyu beef, like it's not on any of the cooking shows yet. Like it's nothing, man. Like hardly anyone's really had it.
2011.
Nobody had heard of it.
Yeah.
Law school was kind of my plan. I was, San Diego and different ones in my family, and chatting with a guy. He's like, you dodged a bullet on this one, because he's like, you're going to try to use your law degree as a business degree. He's like, go get an MBA if you feel like you need some more school. And man, best advice I ever got. But anyways, my point is, while I was in that program, one of the things I did was present what my business was, what I was doing. And I'm trying to talk about my whole plan to build this Wagyu herd and sell this premium meat. And people are like, what the heck is Wagyu? I'm like, well, Kobe beef. And they're like, okay, well, you have to say Kobe beef. Like, but that's not what it is. And so, but I'm like, all right, whatever communicates it to the customer. So you kind of have to, and I think that's one of the challenges we're in with the industry. There's certain buzzwords or things that people associate,
Yeah.
and trying to break off those, maybe preconceived ideas or redefine words. How hard is that? You know what I mean?
Pretty
Like
tough.
what we were talking about with, well, what is it? Is it full blood? Is it a pure blood? Is
Yeah.
it a half blood? Like there's American, Australian. It's so funny, all of these different ones. And so, kind of figuring out, how do I present this and how do I package it? So when I hit that hurdle right at the beginning, that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it made us really figure out, how do we present this? How do we connect it where it can translate from what people have understood to how it applies here back home?
Yeah. So what is Kobe beef? Why don't you give us a description of that?
Kobe, it'd be like champagne, right? Proper champagne has to come from France, from that specific region. And
Yeah.
so within Japan, you've got your they call them prefectures, how we would look at states,
Yeah.
right? Or even counties. So if it came from that specific region,
Yep.
it gets that classification. That's
Right.
Kobe is a place in Japan. So we actually have property in Japan. We've got some connections there. We've got Japanese Wagyu on Japanese ground, and it's fun.
Sweet.
It's fun.
Wow.
And so actually this year they had the Wagyu Olympics there in Hokkaido.
I know. We
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
go, but we didn't make
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Dude,
Next time.
so I didn't make it this year either. I was there with my boy in August.
Mm-hmm.
I missed it by 10 days. I was like,
Really?
oh, we tried to get it rearranged, but with the kids I was taking and a youth group I was taking, I just couldn't get it switched around because I didn't even know it was this year. I'm like, oh, shoot. So I tried to shift. I'm like, well, I can't shift everything around, have everybody buy tickets to make it. And I couldn't get out early because I was taking the whole group, but I was like, dang, that would have been a good one. But
So
anyways,
what is the Wagyu Olympics and how often does it happen?
so Wagyu Olympics is it's a contest that covers a whole series of different markers.
Uh-huh.
But basically what it is it's a competition between all of Japan, because Japan's obviously broken up in the islands. So everybody brings the best of the best
Yeah.
to this common meeting ground. They did it in Hokkaido this year.
Uh-huh.
And they do competitions.
Wow.
They do competitions. They look at all of the confirmations. So I don't know how familiar you are with like a 4-H or FF8 type stuff, where they'll have competitions where they'll bring in an animal, whether it be a sheep or a pig. They'll even do it like for the little guys. They'll have rabbits and chickens. Like they start them little and big, all the way through to a steer. And so there's the markers that the judges look for, and there's some unique things that they look for in the breed. And there's different contests, whether it's bulls, heifers, cows, you just go through. And so it's bragging rights
Yeah.
extraordinaire
So-
for all of the farmers.
Sweet.
Can they tell the marbling? Like, don't they have the X-ray to actually check the marbling on the ribeye before they slaughter the cow? Is that available? I always forget.
It is. That's a good question, and it's a controversial one.
Okay.
Because
Love it.
what happens in the process, not only of what's going on live in that muscle to kind of ultrasound that thing,
Yeah.
but then what actually translates when we're looking at a carcass that's hanging in a freezer.
Mm-hmm.
You can have indicators. Okay, so yes, they will look at that intermuscular marbling. They'll scan it. They're getting pretty darn good at it, and there are indicators.
Okay.
But that's one of the challenges with this thing, man. I know you guys have been in this too and understood it. When you pour your blood, sweat, and tears into something, and you don't know what you got until 32, 34, 36 months, until that's hanging in the freezer and you're cutting it open.
Yeah.
I've been blessed. I've been really blessed. The full bloods, I haven't been able to produce a bad full blood.
Yeah.
But those half bloods, or what some people call American or F1s,
F1s.
Yeah.
man, that's a tough game. It's a tough game.
You just don't know, right?
You just don't know. You don't know, and that's one of the things people are playing with. Like what we were talking about. So in Japan, you've got your four main lines. You've got your blacks, your browns, which we would call reds, your
Okay.
polled, and your shorthorn. Nobody really plays with the poles or the shorthorn. They're extremely they're much smaller frame. It's more just people, I think. For me, my take on it, and maybe a little bit controversial. My take is that's what came from their region, and so that's what they got. So they lay claim to it, and they're all proud of it. But I don't see a whole lot of benefit of the short or the poles. But with the reds, there's people that have really led the charge in it. They're blowing it up. You can see a number of guys in Texas. The real famous one you might recognize is the Akushis, right?
Okay.
That's going to bring a lot more carcass size. You're still going to have good marbling, really good marbling. It's increasing grades. Usually, people are seeing anywhere between 30 to 50% increase in grade, which is awesome. But at the end of the day, black's the best. If you're going for marbling, if you're going for that real balanced animal, that carcass yield, I'm just a big fan of the blacks. And so I'm sure I'll make somebody irritated with that statement, but that's what it's about, right? So
That's what
prove
we
me
like.
wrong.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right. I want to ask you too, since you are raising Wagyu cattle in Japan and in America, what, when I look at the Japanese, Wagyu, it just seems so much more marbled than even a full blood in the States. Now, is there a difference? Like, is it because of the consumer, or is the feed, or what's your take on that? And do your Japanese cows raised in Japan, do they look like the A4, A5 marble type?
Yeah, so let me tell you a conversation that I just had. Went to a farmer's place, and great guy, running a big operation, and just talking with him about genetics, being dreamy eyed. I mean, saying to him, "Show, is there any way? Are we ever going to see Japan open up more genetics? Will they ever release more embryos or release more semen? Because as you guys know, right now everything in terms of genetics is declared a national treasure. No
Mhm.
more is leaving the country."
Wow.
And so I'm saying, "Is there any chance? Any chance?" And he's like, "I don't think so, but maybe." Kind of tangent here. We could see a change if you look at the ag industry, if you look at the nation as a whole. There are so few young people engaging in agriculture. There's so much unrest just because our neighboring farmer, he's almost 70. The guy's out there still running his tractor, cutting his hay, moving his cows every day, doing all this. And I go over, I'm like, what are you doing, man? Where's your help? He said, "I can't get anybody to help me." He has no kids, he has no family, nobody's helping. It's like, I said, "So what's going to happen to your farm?" He says, it dies with me. And so all of that to
Dang.
say, you could have an entire cultural shift, and maybe even a governmental shift in such a way where in a few generations things will change, right? I don't necessarily see it on the horizon, but it is possible. Okay. And so where I'm going with all of this is, this guy says to me, "I could give you all of my genetics, I give you my exact feed regimen, you'll never be able to reproduce what I do." I'm like, "Come on, man, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I could do it." He's like, "Nope, you'll never reproduce it." I said, "Why do you say that?" He says, "Because the Japanese are so regimented. They are militant with it. I'm telling you, man, when you walk into their facilities, it's like the alarm bell goes off. Everybody knows exactly what time it is. The cows know what time it is. There's that redundancy. Everything's automated. They're measuring out to the gram what's going in front of them. They're measuring what's being consumed, the way they're handled, from point A to point B.
It's
They
just part of the
eat.
culture as a whole, right?
That's it. You're nailing it. Exactly. That's what it is. They are so reproducible, and that's what they have honed in. They've got the recipe, and no one will touch or alter that recipe. And so, with that, they eat, sleep, and breathe it. I mean, we think as ranchers here, we are consumed by it. You go to a whole nother level if you go visit those guys. That their life and their occupation is their existence.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's
Jeez.
what makes a difference.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
set it up. I've got the regiments. I have
Mhm.
written in Japanese the Japanese feed protocols. I've got them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've
So
played
it's
with
not
it.
top secret anymore.
Oh, well, that's the thing, is they're even a little bit, maybe even a little bit arrogant with it. They're like, "Yeah, here, you try this. See what
Ha
you can do." I've gotten
ha.
pretty darn close. I've gotten pretty darn
Yeah.
close, but there's just something about the way that they really are forced to handle it. And to be quite honest, it's not my preference. I like to be able to look out in my pastures, see my cattle living more of a natural, um, open spaces kind of life where they're living how God created them to live, as opposed to having them stalled up in a little 10 by 10, right? I mean, look, you got to do what you got to do. I understand it's an island, there's limited space and stuff, but that's what it takes. It takes so low stress, so low movement for something to marble like that, to finish like that, to create that kind of carcass. And man, they've honed it in. They've
Yeah.
honed it in.
How big have you grown your
Wow.
herd?
I'm small over there. I'm small over there. Over here, my place in Oregon, I got about 150 mama cows. Those are a mix of my Angus and my F1s. I'm primarily using those for embryo production, and then my full blood herd is about a third of that. So the challenge with the full blood deal, and you guys might know this too. I've watched a number of operations come and go over the years because they get all fired up, they hit a home run or two because they've got maybe 4, 6, 8 carcasses to sell over the course of a year, and so they say, "Let's go, let's ramp this up, let's make it 40, 50, 60," and then they're sitting with a bunch of inventory. And
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
a, it's an interesting game because the market on a whole hasn't caught on, right? Like if I loaded up my fats right now and headed to the sale barn, they're gonna be like, "What are these fat roping steers?" You know what I mean? It's like, here's a $20,000 carcass that'll go for market, and there's not really any other outlet unless you go all the way to the packaged product. And so there's that balance. How do you build, how do you grow as a business where you've got your niche and you've got your consumer, but then scale it in such a way where you don't lose quality, you don't lose that customer service priority, you don't lose that interaction, but can grow it bigger and do something, like one of these big players are doing with the crosses with the Americans. And so it's a tough game.
Wow. But you say you raise some full blood.
Yeah.
What is full blood Wagyu?
So full blood Wagyu is going to be traceable all the way back to Japan. Both mom and dad, sire and dame, you have to show that is 100% Japanese genetics came from the island. So back in the 90s, we saw genetics released. Dr. Jerry played a pivotal role in this and bringing that over to the U.S. And so those are bulls that were born in Japan. Those are cows or heifers born in Japan that were brought over. So we can all trace through genetic tracking, through samples. We submit samples to the American Wagyu Association. They provide DNA verification that says, yep, this goes back to the island. And so that is a full blood. What people have played with on that is taking, for example, like what AgriBeef will do. They'll use amazing bulls, full-blood Wagyu bulls, but they'll cross it with some English breed. Most common, you're going to see it on Angus. Angus cross really well. They bring that carcass size. They bring those big, beefy flavors. They bring all of those traits that we need as producers. And
Bigger muscles.
Yeah, and then we couple that with the beauty of the marbling, with the beauty of those health benefits that only Wagyu are producing. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. I know you're super passionate about the health benefits. Let's chat about that. I mean, what are the healthiest aspects of eating this beef?
All right, so little bit of personal anecdote. So beginning of the year, my brother-in-law, he's an ultra marathon runner, just health guy. He's carnivore, right? And I've always been health conscious and wanting to just do right by myself, my family, everything. He says, just try it, man. So back in January, I went full carnivore. And
Ooh, okay.
I kind of have an upper hand, and it's sometimes a little bit, I feel bad to say it because I've got access to the best beef in the world. Yeah. And then one of my neighbors does chicken as well. So I've got my farm fresh eggs. I got homegrown, pasture raised, free range birds, and then beef. And so it's like, dude, I've never felt better personally. Just within terms of how I operate, how I work, I can just go all day. He got me turned on to some good probiotics, prebiotics, just the overall gut health. Because at first, I'm like, this is good, but what? I feel like there's a missing component. He's like, yeah, you need to try this out. So he turned me on to a really good one, Happy Juice. There's a plug for Happy Juice with the Mari, but. There's something about getting your gut right where then you can take all those nutrients, really capture them, and I can literally feel my body working, functioning properly. And so what you've got as a challenge within the carnivore diet is those saturated fats. If you're doing comparisons, if you're looking at a classic American diet that's saturated, I should use a different word, that's inundated with seed oils, processed sugars, all of these empty carbs. If you're going to compare that to somebody saying, hey, well, what if you just eat a, regular steak? Well, yeah, you go with that regular quote unquote steak with its saturated fatty acids, because you're hitting a home run when you do that comparison. What I'm doing is I'm saying, well, if you want to go to the best of the best, if you want to say, all right, I'm serious about my health, serious about wellness, really want to have the best of the best, what is it? You cannot argue with all of the clinical studies, all of the research, and all of the science that has gone into studying out the fatty acid profiles of the Wagyu. And so I've got a huge advantage. My dad's a molecular scientist. He worked in a lab for 30 some odd years. He's my helper in everything genetics and everything science. And so that was one of the big factors that he said, all right, we're going to go for the Wagyu when we were first deciding what we were going to jump into, because of those they are genetically predisposed to some of these traits, your CLAs, conjugate conjugated linoleic acids. They've got your proper balance of good omegas. You guys were talking about some of the omega-6s. You want to watch out for those, right? So you need your 3s, you need your 9s, and so that's what you're going to hit a home run with the Wagyu. And then there's just a number of other things we could talk about within that, molecular and biological structure. But hey, how about we talk about a little bit of taste? Because I don't know about you, but usually the rule is if it tastes good, you probably should spit it out, right? It's not good for you. But here we have a protein that is so nutrient dense, it's so delicious, and the body absolutely thrives on it. It's cool, man, and so it fits the lifestyle. It fits, part of the message that we get to preach of health. And I really want so much of the ranching community to understand the changes that are needed. I mean, you look at the stress that farmers and ranchers live under, their lifestyle, their diets. It's like, dude,
Not easy.
we should be leading in this, man. We should be the healthiest people on earth. Why is there so much obesity? Why is there so much early young men, young women having heart attacks, having aneurysms, having strokes? It's like, dude, this isn't right. And so we got to learn how to operate in this industry in such a way that really we've taken care of ourselves.
For sure, buddy.
Wow.
I wish I could send you a virtual hug, bro.
Well,
speaking my language.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you guys because you're helping get the message out. I was with my wife just the other day. We've been on this cool health journey and really just stepping it up and increasing it, find the places we can improve. And she's like, I know. This was at the beginning of the year. I say the other day. Sometimes that was months and months ago. She's like, I know that without hesitation, like when we're calving or there's things going on, it doesn't matter rain or snow. It doesn't matter what's going on, what time of night. We're out there. We're taking care of them. She's like, if you would just put half the effort into taking care of yourself and your body as you do putting into these animals and taking care of things on the ranch, you're gonna live a lot longer. She's like, we'd like you around. We'd like your kids. Your kids would like you around. And so it's stuff like that says, all right, if I've got the opportunity, and maybe a guy doesn't have the ability to have some backyard beef or raise cattle, but he can go to his local butcher. He can go to you guys and find out, well, where did this come from? He can come to me. I've got direct to consumer. There's so many places what the Reeves are doing, what many people in Idaho, throughout the states, man, you can find a local farmer or rancher. And it helps them, it helps you. It's how it should be. We've gotten so backwards in the food industry. We've gotten so upside down in how we do this thing. I'm passionate about seeing that changed. And so I've got all these different things that I just feel we can leverage and use to bring people together. And what better to bring them together around than a good, hearty meal?
For sure.
Yes.
Not break bread, but
hey,
slice
meat.
Yes, man.
One thing that we learned with Jerry and Harley and those guys out there is when we went to the auction, it was very curious to the two of us to look around at all these different walks of ranchers and cattle people and ask them what they're doing. Like, what are you here for? And so to go back to kind of like, how do we fix it, right? That's kind of my question for you. Like, how do we stop raising bad product and educate everybody to, slowly integrate all of these better breeds, for lack of a better term, into their herd and improve the quality nationwide? Is it possible? Is it broken? Is it fixable?
Yeah, man. Anything's fixable. Look at what we've achieved just as a human species. Look what we've achieved as a nation. What it comes down to is the priorities. I believe that if we could stop being so upset with each other and fighting against each other, we could actually have a revolution for something good, some unity to create that. And I'm not trying to get political with it, but you can see it on every level. I mean, what do we got?
Sure.
Is any politician discussing issues? When it comes down to it, I don't care if you're left, right, in the middle. Is anybody even discussing issues anymore? Everybody's just, oh, them. It's just nonsense on both sides. And so what we got to do is we got to recognize we're smarter than to be played. We're not pawns here in this.
Right.
We're well educated. We've never had greater access to information. We've never had more options as a civilization. What are we doing? And so I believe if we can just ask the right questions and we can challenge people. Come on, man. Who doesn't want something improved in their life? If I asked you, what's one thing you would improve about your mental wellness right now? What's one thing you'd want to improve, about your physical well-being. If people could look at that and answer that, come to good logical conclusion of what they want, well, look, we can get there. There may be varying paths, there may be multiple ways to do it, but at least let's have the conversation to recognize, as a nation, bro, we are jacked. Our health is so messed up, it's ridiculous. And so if we've got solutions to say, let's prioritize this. In Japan, they prioritize their food quality. They prioritize what they eat. And so it's been fun for me, and this is one of the things I love with my boys, with my family. I want to constantly expose them to world need. I want to expose them to other types of living and communities, and what other guys are prioritizing, other nations are prioritizing, because it checks us. Because I come back and I say, well, why do we prioritize that? And what is it that's so important about that? Why do I, quote, fit into the system? There's good systems, but there's also ones that we really should look at and say, why in the world do we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Food is a big one.
It's a huge one.
Yeah. It's funny. Nobody is talking about just our food system and how screwed up that is, and how hard it is for ranchers these days, and how hard farming is, and how nobody wants to help. You're totally right about that. Oh,
It's tough. It's one of the things. It's one of the reasons I got into this. Just in the midst of all of the things that we do with ministry and with ranching, just really pushing the health and wellness side of things, because it breaks my heart to see. I mean, I could take you to two of my neighbors' places right now. They work 7 days a week, dusk till dawn. They're barely making ends meet. There's so many things that they're challenged with, and it's like, look, man, I got to intervene. Like, I got to help. You got to get yourself right. You got to get your body right, or you're going to die early. You're going to die young. Yeah. And in the meantime, what kind of quality of life are you living? Right. And so yeah, look, in terms of, I'm not trying to bash the industry. In terms as a whole, we are the best beef producers in the world. We make the best quality beef in the world. I don't care if you're at Walmart buying a big tube of meat off the shelf. It might not be something that you're served up in a local butcher shop or something that comes off of my place. But look, it's still good beef. It's still good beef. Is there a place to improve it? Absolutely. Is there things that we can do better? Yeah. But if we could just get people eating more meat and cutting out some of those empty carbs and all that processed sugar, look, we're going to be way better off. So I don't care where you're buying it or where you're at, where your economic status is. If you can improve and you can prioritize protein, prioritize the protein, man. Your body's going to thank you. Your family's going to thank you. You're going to thank you.
Yeah.
It's such a resonating tone for ranchers and farmers to work, their fingers to the bone. Like, I grew up in Montana and Idaho as a youngster and see it all the time, and we're still having this conversation however many years later, and like, it's just such a hard life. I don't know what the answer is.
It's hard, because it's the cycle, and it's the machine. When you look at really what, like, okay, so I don't know about you guys, but for me, I can be a little bit type A, right? When I'm going to go gather a herd, I want it to go from point A to point B, and everybody stay in their single file line, and everybody does it right. Dude, you're out to lunch if you think that's going to happen. Because it's always going to go south. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. And so you can't have the mentality of being stuck in a particular way of doing it, but it's like we're locked in. You've got these factors that are uncontrollable. If you're a person that wants to have control of things in terms of how it's laid out, you've got weather, you've got markets, you've got livestock. Look, you got livestock, you're going to have dead stock. It's just the way that it goes. And so how do you take all of these things that are so far out of your control and try to place it into something that you can regulate, something that you can wrap your head around, and something that is predictable? So it's a pitfall. I've found it. Look, okay, so you've got at least one thing in your life. When you're going to take them to the sale barn. And so you're stuck taking them to the sale barn. And whether the market's up or down, you're either going to be able to pay the bills or it's another visit to the bank, and how do you break that cycle? That's one of the things that we looked at. I'm saying, look, I don't know too many people that have got into ranching to make a lot of money. It's just not the way this thing works. Right. But can we bring some added value? Can we create some niches where we can do well? Is there some things that we can really hedge our bets so that there's advantages? Yeah, I believe that's one of the big home runs of Wagyu. And we're watching it grow. watching it grow across industry. So again, I think that if we try to turn this ship in one push, it ain't gonna happen. But if we can have the conversations that you guys are facilitating, we can have more people working together, some of the things that are taking place with this breed and just bringing awareness. Like never before, I believe we have a more educated consumer than ever. And so if we can just use our platforms to educate and talk about health and wellness and talk about proteins and talk about the lifestyle and tell our stories, it resonates with people. And I believe slow and steady, we can see it increase and we can see it grow.
That's great, man.
And we're telling the truth.
That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right? We're not trying to pull the, rug out from underneath anybody. We're
all these rich ranchers screwing people over.
Exactly.
Breaking for everything.
Yeah,
well, that's crazy. What I love. It's not a sales pitch, man. Look, data over drama.
Right. It's real.
What do the facts say?
Yeah,
Everybody's being dramatic. I know people that are absolute cultic with their Angus. These people are, it's this breed, it's that breed. Okay, why? And they shouldn't get upset and offended by why. And people ask me, I love when people say, well, why Wagyu? Well, here's why for me. Does that resonate with you? Is that something you want to prioritize? If so, let's go. And I think it is with more and more people. I believe we'll see this breed grow.
We do too. And I think we talked about on a previous phone call about grass-fed. Like you're a grass-fed Wagyu market, because we talked to somebody when we were at the auction at Jerry Reeves in Bar R, and they were saying that the grass-fed Wagyu may not be as marbled as grain-fed and grain-finished Wagyu, but we're still gonna get that almost prime look from only grass. Is that something that you believe to be true, or what do you think of the grass-fed Wagyu market?
A couple things. I'm an absolute believer in the grass-fed market. The first 2 steers I did grass-fed just because I wanted to look and see. I didn't have my feed protocol honed in. Quite frankly, I didn't have my suppliers honed in. And I said, let's play with this, let's do it. And so, is there a market? Yes.
How'd they turn out? How did they turn out, though?
Awesome. Great. I had a big smile come across my face whenever it has. They're awesome. And so there's a few tricks of the trade. There's some secrets that aren't necessarily secrets, so I don't mind sharing them. But my question to the people that have approached me about grass-fed Wagyu is why? Why do you want grass-fed? And so depending on the drivers for them, I can usually help direct them in providing what it is they're looking for. Most people, they want those omegas. They want those CLAs. They want those MUFAs. They want everything of the health benefits. So if I present to them and I show them, because I've had our meat tested. I've sent our meat off to labs and looked at the intermuscular fat. I said, test this. What does this look like? How are we doing? And it's off the charts. It's off the charts. And it's because not anything I did. It's the breed. It's the genetic predisposition of this breed to create these amazing health benefits. And so when I am able to present those facts, just, hey, here's a third-party evaluation of my meat. Here's what you're going to get. Here's all of the research. Here's the studies. Does this check off why you would want grass-fed? I would say the overwhelming majority, like 90% plus, they're like, done. There are some that are saying, no, I don't like corn. I don't like barley. I don't like these different grains. I don't like any distillates because of maybe some reason or other. Okay, fine. That is what it is. If that's your whole reason, yep, go with grass-fed. But again, most people that are going to ask that or look for that, it's the health benefits. It's what they're getting. And so that is going to be, I'm going to classify that as a niche within a niche. It's a much smaller slice, but there are those people. So the additional challenge in order to get this, so any breeders that are listening that want to get involved, here's your secret. It'll save you a lot of years of work. Go longer. If you leave that carcass out in the pasture longer, you're going to have to extend it out, an additional probably 4 months. But if you go longer, you can see this actually reproduced in your English breeds, in your Herefords, in your Angus. If you will take them to a longer finish, you're going to begin to get a greater marbling manifestation. There's some things that you got to do on the front end. You got to do it. It's really, really important. I guess I'll just spill all the secrets. There's some things that you even do in utero. You got to get that fetus ready. You got to get mama ready, because when those adipose cells are laid, it's third trimester. and you got to be creep feeding calves. So if you can lay that adipose, which is your fat, it's all your fats, right? So think of it like this. Think of it like a kid who has a horrible diet, right? They're going to be predisposed to diabetes, right? Because you're just blasting them with the sugars, blasting them with all of these insulin spikes, making an absolute train wreck of their entire system, of their entire physiological makeup, right? Well, it's like that, but not in an unhealthy way for the calves, because what you're doing is you're allowing access to that high value protein. You're allowing them to lay those adipose cells down, and so that when they get later on in life, now I go and I pour on a good finishing ration and I really grow that out. Those fat cells are just growing, and now I've got a delicious, well marbled carcass from head to tail.
Love it.
Dude.
Love it.
That's awesome. And you know, speaking about head to tail, I think that's something that we're excited about in Wagyu, is that there's so many more cuts in the cow that you can actually utilize than that won't just go to grind, because that's the biggest thing, right? That's the biggest problem with raising cattle, is how do I get rid of all this grind? Everybody wants the ribeyes and tenderloins and New Yorks.
Right.
How do I get rid of all this grind? But with Wagyu, there's a lot more stakeable items from
That's
nose to
it.
tail.
I love it. No, I've tried it. I've tried it all. Those first ones, I actually pretended to be a butcher for a little while, because I had one of my carcasses just cut into primals, and I'm like, I don't want to send this to somebody, because I was trying to work with other butchers, and they're like, well, here's what you're going to do, and they give me this cookie cutter deal. I'm like, no, we're not dealing with just a normal carcass here. And so it was a bit of pushback. This was early on. Like I say, this was the first 4 that I harvested. So I said, all right, I just want one primals. And I started slicing things up and looking at, all right, what's typically a slow cook cut? What's something that you really braise or roast, whatever the case may be? And let me try some stuff. And so, man, we just went wild. We just had fun in the kitchen, because you're cutting up something that normally, well, how about a chuck roast, for example? You start cutting a chuck roast real thin and just fry that off. Dude, it's unbelievable.
Really?
Some of these other what you would typically put in a crock pot, just cut that up thin. I mean, some of the different things that you can do, and you see it in Japan a lot more, because they do it. But when you've got that much fat, that much flavor, that level of tenderness, I love Wagyu burger, don't get me wrong. But why in the world are you going to grind that stuff up, man? There's too many more options.
I love it. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, that's always been the issue, right? Is it's there. We're not experimenting with all that stuff yet. And when we were at the auction with Jerry Reeves, Professor Blake, yeah, he took a whole leg, and they're cutting up these like actual stakeable items and like testing it out in front of everybody. Like, is this going to be a stakeable item from the leg? This is super tender. And he found like the teres major of the leg. I forget. He had all the freaking scientific, like all the scientific muscles. He's breaking them all down. And we're just like, what? But it was really interesting, because we were actually just taking this. He's butchering it up right in front of everybody. We're just taking it on this cooking it on this barbecue or this steel and this flat iron, and we were just eating everything. It was really cool. It was really cool to see that, and it was cool that the honesty. You know, he was like, yeah, actually, some of these aren't that great, but a lot of them really are. So like actually finding out, you know, what we can do.
I love it.
So that was pretty
Now,
cool,
was that full blood or was that cross?
Full blood.
That was a full blood, right?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah. We were in awe the whole time, just like, oh, it's crazy, man. You know, I have a question though about Japanese Wagyu, and we're talking about utilizing the whole animal. I mean, we've only really brought over, you know, ribeye, New York, maybe tenderloin, a couple of other things. That's what we see from like major, you know, importers that bring this stuff in. But like, I'm thinking about, what do you do with like a A5 Wagyu brisket? You know, what happens with something like that? How do they utilize that?
So you guys would be more informed than I am on this. What I've seen, all I can tell you is my experience walking through the grocery store, and I would ask, you know, because it's written in Japanese, you know, I can scan it with my phone and get the Google Translate, but, you know, our team that's over there, one of my guys, I'll ask him, what's this? And he'll say, oh, well, this is off a brisket, but it'll come in a package where it's just real thin sliced, something that you would put you know, in a hot pot or shabu shabu or some of these different things that they just grill up right there. And so they're just slicing it. They'll make just Basically, anything that we would normally slow cook or crock pot or whatever, they're going to just thin slice it, and they've got the recipes for it.
Yeah.
And it's just a really
That's
different
dope.
style. I mean, you're never going to see a whole brisket packer put on a smoker over there. It's just not what they do. Um,
Yeah.
but then at the
No
same
way.
time, they come over and they see what, like, as I asked, I said, listen, I want a steak tonight. Like, I want to be able to sit down and have a proper steak, and they're thinking, a few bites of some A5. Like, no, I can't have A5. I know what happens at 3 in the morning after a big feed of A5. I want something I can eat. Um, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to find. You can get it, some A3 stuff. A3 is a sweet spot for me. I love it. And so yeah, you can
Okay.
have.
How does that how does that compare? Sorry, how does that compare to like a full blood or F1 cross? If you were to put that on a scale, the A3.
It would be what we would consider a home run. Like I don't know who I could compare to, but maybe like
Like a home
yeah.
run
So
full blood.
like one of the labels, some of the different growers will have a black label, right? So it's like the top shelf within
Yeah.
their full blood production, right? It's the
Okay.
best of the best. You're usually in that A3,
Okay.
even pushing A4 category. I've seen some A4s. Obviously,
Okay.
that's very
Cool.
subjective because we know that's not an American grading
Yeah.
system at all. But if you were to put side by side, you could look at it and say, yeah, for sure, that's pushing there. And so, yeah, you would compare that to a really
Okay.
good
Cool.
American raised Japanese full blood A3. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool to know.
We're
Yeah.
building a chart.
Yeah, we're trying to kind of build a chart from most rich to like to amazing,
Yeah,
but
no,
still really
A3
beefy. Like
is where
where
I
does
go
everything fall?
for, and that's what our customers love. I believe that's going to be one of our challenges with seeing Wagyu grow to a degree is
Mm-hmm.
we've got to keep that balance of what the American consumer wants. They want that bite. They want a good balance of the fat
Yep.
with, that meat. You look at
Mm-hmm.
you've seen it. You look at A5 and you're like, there's more white than red. The American doesn't want that.
Yeah.
The palate doesn't see that. Our eating style doesn't suit it. So if we can find once again that blend where people don't have to feel like they have to, you know, it's crazy to me. People will sit down to a steak and think that somehow they're like eating a treat, right? Like they need to balance that, or they shouldn't eat too much red meat. I totally
Yeah.
disagree with that. My breakfast is
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 eggs and a half a pound of ground, and lunch
I
is a
love
huge steak, and dinner is a steak and maybe something in
that.
between. Like I'm in on this carnivore thing, dude. I am in on the carnivore,
Yay!
dude.
It's my dream, bro.
Come
I'm
ahead.
coming over.
Yeah, dude,
So
we gotta come
I
visit.
I don't really understand why it is, and you can get conspiracy theory with you if you want, or you can look at the different things. But we should pretty well be able to recognize the American diet and the food pyramid is jacked up. It's just flat out wrong, man.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. And so I'm willing to
Oh
to
yeah.
to step on some toes to say, check it. Look at it again. Let's really
Yeah.
reevaluate this thing. If we've never been so sick as a nation, if we've never had so much disease, we've never had so many new diseases, we've never had so many issues. Really, are you really going to tell me that this steak is threatening, my cardiovascular system? I have problems, my heart's going to be somehow hurt by like these crazy claims, right? So, maybe that's a
Yeah.
little bit of soapbox, but I'm a big fan of red meat, man. I'm a big fan of proteins.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like it, man. So if we're going to Japan though, and we're gonna order something, they're probably gonna slice it thin. They're gonna take the whole cow and slice it pretty much super thin. They're not gonna
Right,
grind
back
that
to your
up,
question. I
right?
got on another tangent. I'm a tangent guy. They're not going to
That'd be
grind it. You're
insane.
going to have a hard time finding
Bro,
burger.
that'd be
I'm trying to
insane.
think. I believe
Yeah.
there was burger. Yeah, there was, because dairies are big as well, and so you're going to have your Holsteins and even Jerseys, and so they'll use those, and so those will
Oh.
be typically a little bit more grind. But again, that's an F1. Those
Yeah.
those are across.
Yeah.
You can sit down and you can of
Okay.
course order up any steak. I say any, just about. They're
Yeah.
they're really going to regulate it to your Hollywood cuts, like you said. You're going to have your fillets. You're going to
Yeah.
have your strips. You're going to have your ribeyes. You know what was a home run for me? was the A3 sirloin, because it's the perfect balance over there. Those
Buddy,
Man,
that's
they're
yum,
awesome.
that's what we like.
dude.
That's what we've been.
Wagyu top sirloin,
Yeah, dude.
so freaking good.
That's one of our favorite cuts to look at side by side, to say like prime versus Wagyu. You can really tell just the amazing
Yes.
difference, and you're like, oh,
Yes.
I
Yes.
need that one.
Right, so that's what you get. So those
Yeah.
are going to be your primary steak option. You'll see when you're in the grocery store, you can get, you can
Yeah.
find just about any of the cuts, or I should say any of those primals that you would recognize, any of the things you guys recognize as experts within the muscles of the cow. They're just going to be butchered and packaged in something that might look a little different.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Dude, this has been pretty fun, man.
Great.
You've been dropping some great knowledge, man. This is really cool. It's really cool to hear your perspective, and I think it's really awesome that you're raising, cattle in Japan, so you have that different perspective. You've been there. It's really interesting to hear, man. What else would you want people to know about Wagyu before we sign it off?
I
here?
think that more and more people are educating themselves, and so anybody that's listening, just go look. Let me challenge you. Get healthy. I think if each and every one of us can just make a commitment to make an improvement, make a change in our diet, try something out, give it 90 days. Right? I mean, for me, it's like if you look at a lifestyle change and you're willing to commit 90 days, I mean, if I told you could live the next 30 years a way better quality life if you just give me 90 days, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Who's not going to take
Who
it
would
up?
take
And
that up?
so,
Yeah.
what I want people to do is recognize that for us to gain some momentum in this industry, which we are gaining without a doubt, we just need people to go ahead and give it a try. Look, have you ever met somebody that tried Wagyu and just like, yeah, this definitely isn't for me, I would never eat it again, disgusting?
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Only people who probably went to
Oh.
Applebee's and got like a Kobe burger that wasn't Kobe, that's it. That's what we hear the most from like comments. It's like, I tried it and burger, it was fucking terrible. And you're like, come on, man, you didn't try real Wagyu. But no, you're totally right. And especially when we have our butcher shop here, people come in and they try it and they're like, wow, that was like the best steak I've ever eaten. So it's cool to see that and hear that feedback. But real quick, so, you have a bunch of cattle in your backyard and easily accessible to it. What are some cuts that people would maybe experiment with? Some non-traditional cuts that maybe be a little more affordable that you have had that you would recommend for the carnivore diet?
Because I go through all of them, and I could probably spend a good 10-15 seconds on everyone if you just started throwing cuts at me. One of the ones I love is flat irons. I mean, yeah, it's got that.
Yeah.
It's got that. It's such
So
the
good.
unique part of the shoulder, right? Because you're like, how does this working muscle? I think you guys have talked about the zebuton as well, right? You've got these little anomaly cuts that are on a piece of beef that before you would just whatever, let's just throw it in a crock pot or slow cooker. That one it's affordable. It's absolutely delicious. If you want that beefy flavor, you want that tenderness, and you're not going to have to be paying 50, 60, 75 bucks, a pound for ribeye. I'm telling you, I've got a pretty good recipe, and I imagine you guys would throw down. You can make that thing taste pretty darn good. Yeah. So there's so many. I don't know why. I guess it's just humans. It's who we are. We don't like change, and we're risk, adverse, and we're like, I'm not sure if I want to, but dude, just try something. Talk with your local butcher. Go on one of these direct to consumer websites and look for one you've never heard of, and just give them a shout. Say, how do you cook this?
Mm-hmm.
So many people now are providing recipes to help educate the consumer. One of the things we love to do is we make sure that with the boxes we put together, I'm not going to have a freezer full of roasts or ground or anything like that. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I'll help you. I'll support you.
Yeah.
Try this. Call us. Email us. We'll get you a recipe. We'll help you cook it. Don't be intimidated by it. Incorporate it into how you're doing it, and you're going to absolutely love it. It's honestly, I think, easier to cook. It's hard to screw this thing up, man.
It is.
Yeah.
That's what we always say, right? It's impossible to screw this thing up.
So it's fun.
Awesome.
It's fun. There's a lot to learn. Once again, I'm very appreciative of all the people that have poured into me and what I've learned from Dr. Reeves and so many around us. And just, if we could get people excited about things, to continually learn and look at all of the opportunities that life affords. Like, don't live with your head down. Have a look around and try something new, especially in the kitchen, man. Try it out. There's affordable cuts.
Totally.
Just break out of the routine a little bit.
Yeah. Break out of the routine, exactly.
I give our regular customers kind of almost like a Wagyu passport. So I'm like, what'd you have last time? Oh, try the kula. You like a New York steak? Try the top sirloin. Try the, like there's so many different affordable cuts out there that are coming from the same animal that are eating that New York and that tenderloin every time.
Yeah.
It's great, and they trust me, and they're like, yeah. Like, oh, that Zabuton was amazing, and Wagyu Terrace Major.
Yeah, we can't keep those cuts in stock anymore. Like, we're
flying.
We sell more Zabuton and Terrace Major than we do Ribeye New York.
Look,
sometimes.
Somebody started talking about them.
Awesome.
Somebody said, "Hey, what's this?" Somebody was willing to try it,
yeah.
And then here we continue. Like, "Hey, this is worthwhile. This is worthwhile." So I love it, man. You guys keep it up. It's really cool to have this and the education that it's bringing. So, yeah, I love what you guys are doing. Keep doing it, man. You guys are cranking.
Thanks, man. We appreciate you, man. Hey, real quick, tell people where they can find your stuff, your direct-to-consumer products.
That's Sustainable Natural Foods, snfwagyu.com, snfwagyu.com. Look us up, hit us up on Instagram, and we've got stuff that we're doing, and we're in a good position. I can't keep stuff in the freezers right now, and so it's great. So if you're trying to get something immediately, I'm gonna be back ordered, but let's connect. Let's build the breed, build the knowledge, and keep supporting each other. That's the biggest thing. There's too much good to talk about and to support each other in than talking about how somebody's doing wrong or how much this or that. Just let's grow this industry in a way that it supports, from the feedlot all the way down to the grass-fed small producer. That everybody's bringing some positives to the table. Let's celebrate those.
Yeah, 100%. Become a healthier nation for it. Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much, man. You can find Daniel at snfwagyu.com. Go check him out. And he's heavy on Instagram as well. That's where I found him. We started chatting and asked him to be on the podcast, man. But yeah, you're so knowledgeable and so fun to talk to, man. Thank you so much for giving us your perspective. We really appreciate it, brother.
And when can we come visit?
I'm just down the road. Seriously, come anytime. You got a welcome invitation, open invitation. You're welcome. So appreciate it. Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, we're gonna head down and check out Grasslands Barbecue in Oregon, and then head down to Southern Oregon. Maybe we'll stop by and see you.
Love it.
Got to. Yeah. Sweet, man. Well, I appreciate it again, dude. Thank you. Reach out if you ever need anything.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you later.